All right, Zay, let's not try to play this like you were just being a good husband and all. We all know you really wanted to. It was probably you keeping Chelsea up if I had to guess.
Welcome to the Weekly Fix podcast, where we're just two friends talking about our passions within movies, TV shows, gaming, and comics. Thanks for checking out the podcast. We hope you like it.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Weekly Fix. My name is Jacob, and joining me, as always, is my good friend Zayne. We're excited for this week because we finally had the finale of another Star Wars show in the book. Skeleton Crew has come to a close, and I'm super excited to talk about it and get some of Zayne's thoughts because I thoroughly enjoyed the show. He's been kind of a little bit not as enjoying it as much as I have, so it's going to be really fun to see how the finale held up for him, if it's something he would recommend to other people. But before we get into any of those things, Zayne, how are you doing?
Man, I'm doing great. This is a 3-day weekend. We had MLK Day today upon recording this, so it was nice to not have to go to work. I had some wonderful conversations with people this morning, and then I got to help one of my good friends out with his car for most of the day, and then ready to record this podcast. This weekend was great. We got to dedicate my little boy at church. We had a baby dedication ceremony, so we got to fully commit him to bringing him up in the admonition of the Lord. And I thought it was a beautiful ceremony. I thought they did a great job, and I love the intentionality behind it. So that was a pretty special weekend to us. So yeah, it was great. What about you? I know you had family in, right?
Yeah, my family came up and visited. It's my brother's second time coming down to Jacksonville, and my sister and her husband's first time. We had a really good time. We were able to actually go to Disney Springs for the very first time. I had never been, they had never been. So that was really cool. And if you guys aren't familiar with Disney Springs, it's like an extension of Disney World, where it's more so just like shops and like cool Disney themed items and stuff like that. But it's free. So that's the nice thing about it. There's no rides, nothing like that. But you still kind of get that like Disney feel. We did get to eat at a couple of really good restaurants while we were there, which was super fun. But overall, just a really great weekend catching up with my family, getting to spend some time with them. So yeah, you can never complain about stuff like that.
Did you pick up anything cool?
No, I got a few little knickknacks while we were there. I got a couple of cool mugs and glasses that I'm going to be using for my
Ooh.
Friday Night Reads episodes. If you guys aren't familiar with those, that's something I've been doing over on like YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, and all those platforms. I've been doing like a Friday Night Reads segment every week where I talk about the comic that I'm reading each weekend. So got a couple of new mugs to hopefully spice it up a little bit, make it a little bit more fun, and get rid of my boring standard glass mug. So I think that'll be a nice little addition to the shorts and stuff.
Yeah, but what you really need to upgrade is that chair,
Yeah,
bro.
listen, I've had more comments about that chair than anything else ever with any of my content. Like everybody's like, "Man, I don't know how you're sitting in this chair. Hey, you need to upgrade this chair." I would upgrade my chair if I had more space. I really want to get one of those beanbag chairs that you see people do that like they can form into a bed. I think those are super super cool. So hopefully in the next studio I'll have like a nicer chair for my Friday night reads. But I do plan on upgrading it in some form or capacity at some point because I got to quit getting these comments about my chairs, and people need to start focusing on the awesome comics that I'm reading. But no, it's definitely something that needs an upgrade.
Dude, if you could get like the Despicable Me chair that's like massively tall, like from the movie, like that would be
I need that, or
hilarious, like way over the top.
I need like the Iron Throne or something, like something that's really going to get
Ooh.
people's catch their attention. Like, oh, he finally upgraded his chair. But it's kind of one of those things that's gotten to the point where it is such a meme. I kind of want to just keep it and like just continue to see how many more content or how many more comments I get about it because it's kind of just funny at this point.
Oh
But
yeah, no, it's great.
yeah, so I am gonna eventually I'll get there. Today is not the day though.
I get it. I get it.
I'm one of those people like we did a little bit more shopping for like actual essential stuff this week, and I needed some new pants and stuff like that because my pants were getting worn out. And I was at the store looking at all these different types of pants and stuff. And I told my wife, I was like, man, you know how many Lego sets or comic books or Funko Pops I could buy with this money? And she was like, no, you're buying pants because your pants they're at their end. They've done their usage. And that's kind of how I am with a chair. I'm like, do I really want to spend money on a chair when I could buy more cool stuff? But it is one of those things you eventually have to upgrade.
Oh, no, I completely get that. Like buying stuff for the house is really pretty painstaking when it's not an
Yep.
upgrade. You're like, do I really need this? Like,
Yep. Yeah,
But
because like imagine how much cooler it would be if I had like a sweet Lego set built in like the background. Like maybe that would catch people's, eyes a little bit better than my poor little chair. But it's been a good
no, the
chair.
poor
It's
little
been
chair will
around for a
stand out.
while now. So, but yeah, no, fun stuff there as always. So I think we both had some really great weekends. We have a lot of fun stuff to talk about. I think one of the things we did get this past a couple days ago was we did get a Brave New World trailer, which is super cool. Kind of more so the same stuff that we've been seeing. There are some. It looks a little bit more polished, which we talked a little bit about before we hopped on here. We don't want to spend too much time on it, but I think me and you kind of both expected to get a few more trailers right before it releases, and we obviously did expect it to be a little bit more polished.
Yeah, I definitely expected to see the graphics enhanced. The issue, I talked about it last time that we talked about this in our rundown episode, but I expected the cherry blossom scene to look better, and I
Mm,
that was not displayed. Like they didn't show that at all in this one.
yeah.
So I think they know that was an issue, and they held back on that to kind of not draw attention to it again. So that to me is encouraging because that means they may be working on it. And we did see a scene with Cap and Red Hulk that was in
Mhm.
like more foresty trees looking. So maybe they completely took that out. I don't know. Could be a complete switch up, but who knows?
Yeah, I think there's probably some feedback that they've gotten over the last few trailers, and they're like, "Oh, let's maybe wait to show any bit more of those scenes." Or, like you said, they maybe just took them out altogether because they couldn't really get it up to the quality standards of Marvel. So we'll have to wait and see what does come of that trailer. But we almost had some really, really good timing because if you guys are familiar, last week we talked a little bit about the Daredevil show that's coming out and how we hadn't gotten a trailer. We've been speculating. We were like, "Will it be a Super Bowl drop? Will it be?" But no, it was kind of just one random morning this past week that we did finally get a Daredevil trailer. Now, Zane, I know this is your most anticipated show, so why don't you hit us off with this one? Tell us what you thought. Give us a little bit rundown of what you saw in the trailer and how much did it excite you?
Yeah, this trailer was encouraging for me. I know we had the reshoots and everyone was so excited about that, and I think they really did a good job with the reshoots because we definitely get to see that he has taken a break from vigilantism, but it seems like he's coming back. I really like the opening it with the cafe with Wilson Fisk, and I definitely know that we're going to be seeing those two combined quite a bit in the show. That they are going to be going somewhat head to head, even maybe passively with a future head to head full payoff coming. Or during this season. I know that was originally supposed to be 18 episodes, but it's been cracked down to 9. So maybe the first half is him against White Tiger and Muse, which we got to see, which I think they both look great. I think Muse in particular has a very creepy vibe that looks pretty. Mm, I don't want to say menacing, but almost just disturbing
Mhm.
to look at. I would say, and I really like that. It's dark, it's gritty, but it also has that Daredevil hopeful where he is striving against the bricks. Like he is the only one who is really hopeful, in his even with his superhero equals. He's not he is the one that it has like the moral guidance because we get to see Frank Castle in this, which I
Mhm.
love. It's really good to see him again. We get to see Karen and Foggy. They're back in this, which is encouraging. We know they were written out of the first take of it, which is mind blowing to me why you would do something like that off screen. Seems insane. So I don't know. I really liked it. We got to see some great action shots. What seems to be a very, very promising show. Now, when you have 9 hours cranked down into 2 minutes and 13 seconds, it's pretty easy to make it look epic. And it could really disappoint. Who knows? But I really like the trailer. I think I watched it like 5 times, trying to soak it all in. But yeah, what did you think about it?
I think the most thing that stood out to me is this is the TVMA I was hoping we would have gotten from Echo. Like this
Okay.
one felt a lot more not necessarily. I don't want to usually really use the word balanced, but I think that's the best word for it. Like it did feel like they were doing that more mature audience feel. There was blood, there was gore. One of my favorite scenes in it was when you see him jump and he like kicks a guy's leg and you see his leg snap. Like that's the type of stuff that I was expecting to see more in Echo, and not really like the flash like blood scenes and stuff like that. The blood felt a lot more grounded in this. It felt like a lot more realistic, which those are all things I was really hoping for in this trailer. You know, we talked a little bit about over at text message. It just felt very dark and like grimacing throughout the whole trailer, and that's really what I was hoping we would get from this. And I'm super excited just kind of to be back in this world, because this is a really fun area of Marvel to be in, like location wise. Like I love being in the streets like this. I like it being more like, you know, lower level crime, but still leading up to something really potentially big and impactful for, you know, however you want to spin the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Like we've talked about in the past, I don't think it's going to, you know, necessarily affect Avenger-esque level of things, but it's going to be something I think that does have some impact with some of our heroes that we already know. I feel like Spider-Man is going to be impacted in this by whatever happens in the show in the next movie, even though I don't think it's going to be like a big impact. I think there's going to be some callbacks that this show is going to have, like in the Spider-Man movie. You're like, oh, remember that part from Daredevil, and Spider-Man's kind of having to deal with that, like maybe in the first half of the movie, while it eventually does build up to that Avengers level threat. So I think this is going to be a really good building block for Marvel moving forward with some of those characters, because these are some big name characters that a lot of people are really excited. You did speak on the Frank Castle. I think that was my favorite scene of the whole trailer, was just seeing him back in action. He looked so good. It looks like it's going to be the exact Punisher that we left. Like I'm pumped for that type of stuff. So overall, I was very impressed with what we got, and I'm more excited for it now than I was. It hasn't moved up my list for most anticipated shows this year, but it's definitely kind of cemented itself in stone of where I did have it, and made me not feel maybe as necessarily remorseful for putting it where I did.
Yeah, I get that, especially with how much more invested I was in it when it was coming out, because I definitely was fully invested in the Netflix series when they were coming out. So I understand not fully being on board with this one to the level that it would take over excitement for something like Andor season 2 for you. I
Mm.
get that. So, but yeah, I'm glad that it cemented its spot. It didn't lower you at all, because it definitely had the potential to do that. So but yeah, no, this is super exciting. I'm thrilled. I'm also really glad that Dex is back.
Mm-hmm.
Um, kind of getting to see Bullseye played by Wilson Bethel. So I didn't know he was coming back, and so that's exciting that he's going to be back. That's going to be interesting to see how they keep up with that storyline. To see clearly they're tying heavily into the Netflix series, and one of those scenes I think was like the most impactful to me was when Rabbit in a Snowstorm is shown in the background of Vanessa and Wilson Fisk eating, and it's got the blood stain on it from season
Yeah.
3 with the blood splatter. And then later you see Wilson Fisk beating up some dudes in that location with that painting still on the wall in the background. I think that's really impressive that they're going to be bringing that back in. Such a intricate, important aspect of the entire Netflix series was that portrait. Like that painting, like had a big deal. Like that was instrumental in their relationship and his like recollection and like coming to himself through his trauma that he had with his father. Like that was really cool. So I'm glad that they're bringing that back in, and I thought that was a really cool, neat clip to include in the trailer, and I was glad to see it.
I've thought about a lot, like what were the reshoots? You know, what were all those things? I feel like those are the big things that were probably reshot and like rewritten. Because you did talk a little bit about how, you know, some of these things have been left out originally, which was crazy. I feel like that's probably what they spent a lot of the time on with these reshoots and stuff like that, in the rewrites and all those things, is how can we make sure that this is a continuation of the beloved Netflix stuff. So I think they're really hitting the nail on the head. That was a perfect example of it. I think there's going to be a lot more of that I'm excited to see, things that we didn't even get to see in this trailer, of callbacks to the show, because I think that's what's going to make this such an awesome and enjoyable experience, is feeling that connection, and is feeling those, you know, storylines still hold weight even in this story all these years later. You know, it is still something that they're focused on, and they're wanting to not necessarily like forget about. They're not just wanting to act like it never happened or act like it wasn't a big deal. I'm happy that these characters, that character development that they did get in those Netflix shows, seems like it's going to continue on into this.
For sure. And I completely agree. The fun thing about that development is they said that there was the first 5 episodes you didn't see the Daredevil suit. Like it was just him being a lawyer for the
Yeah.
first 5 episodes, which would be like infuriating.
Yeah.
So
And
I don't know.
I would be shocked if that's like still the case, right? Like I feel like those are the things that like because it would be so
Oh, it's not.
frustrating.
It's not still the case. They
Yeah.
said they
So
fixed that.
okay, so like that's the thing that I feel like those are probably some of the important things that they redid because you don't want to just be. I think that's probably also another reason that the show is only 9 episodes long now. I mean, if you had 18 episodes, right, 5 of those being like the lawyer-esque stuff, it would have probably been a little boring, but it could have had a major payoff because you have so much time left. Now that we have such less time, which is probably better for them that they're not just dragging out a story for the sake of dragging it out, it feels like we're going to actually get the momentum going like right off the bat. Like I expect this show based off we got in the trailer, obviously it's not a lot and you just touched it on 2 minutes out of a 9 hour show. We didn't get a lot, but I did feel like this is going to really pick up and get going, and we're going to get an idea of the story they're wanting to tell very early on. I think the thing I'm most interested on, which you touched on a little bit, is seeing how him and Fisk work together. You know, how are they going to be backstabbing each other? How are they going to be trying to get the upper hand? Or is this truly going to be, you know, a partnership to take down something else that we may not have even got to see in the trailer? Like, those are the things I'm excited to see, like, come to fruition. Maybe this is like a completely different story than we're expecting to get. So I think there's a lot of question marks here, but I think they're all good question marks. Like, I don't have any question marks where I'm like nervous about what we got in that trailer.
Yeah, no, I don't have any question marks. I'm just excited.
Yeah.
Question marks as in like I'm not liking that. Like
Yes.
I
Yeah.
am just excited. So
Yeah. Yeah, so I'm super pumped for this. I think the large majority of people that I've talked to and that I've read on social media and stuff seem very excited for it and are very happy with the you know, original first look at the show. I mean, obviously we kind of got some of those trailers. I guess it was at maybe was it San Diego Comic-Con or New York Comic-Con where those trailers got leaked. And people
yeah,
were
we got one
excited
from
about
both.
it. Yeah, so people were excited about it then. This feels like it really is set in stone. People are really, really excited for what we're going to be getting. And I got to say, I'm one of those people as well.
Sweet. That's
So,
awesome.
but yeah, anything else you wanted to touch on with the Daredevil trailer?
No, I think that's good. Man, it can't get here fast enough. I really, really am excited for this show.
Yeah. Now I'm like at the point with this one, like I'm excited for it, but I'm more so excited for you. Like I love getting excited for other people when they're really excited about something. And this is something you've been talking about for a long time now, and how excited you are to see this continuation, it being your favorite like IP and stuff. So Marvel is going to be hopefully off to a really good start this year with this show and everything like that. Hopefully Brave New World don't put too much of a damper on it. Hopefully it also is a great movie as well. But yeah, I think Marvel is kind of getting back on track. I know me and you have both been enjoying it, you know, even when everybody else wasn't. But it does feel like kind of the fan interaction and the fan excitement is starting to get its way back, which is always a lot more fun.
Yeah, it's got to do something, right? Or else it's just going to crumble into not producing money for them. So they're going to have to step it up. That's pretty much all there is.
Yeah, so I think this one will do that. I think they're going to probably set some records with streams for Marvel shows in particular.
For sure. This will be their
I,
best Disney Plus show.
Yeah, so I'm super excited for that, and hopefully that creates more content down the road for more exciting stories and stuff like that. But let's go ahead and let's hop into something that I'm super, super excited to talk about, and that is the Skeleton Crew. Now, we finally are at a close with the Skeleton Crew. Now, do you remember what the last episode that we spoke about was for this show?
Yeah, the last episode we spoke about was episode 5, I believe. And that
Okay.
was when they had just found they did not get betrayed yet. So
Okay,
he had
gotcha.
not taken leadership. They had just found the treasure room is the last one we talked about. So we ended on me complaining about those two episodes, episodes 4 and 5.
Yes. So a lot has happened since then, right? Like the
Yes.
story is complete now. We have a complete idea of what happened. We know the characters now. I was wrong about some things that I'm super excited to delve into. But before any of that, just brief overall before if anybody hasn't had a chance to finish this up, little spoiler, non-spoiler review here. What would you say about the show overall? Were you happy with the final product that we did get? And I always like to ask, would you recommend this to somebody else?
Am I happy? Am I happy with the show is a pretty difficult question to ask because I wasn't excited for this.
Yeah.
I know we talked about it, and it wasn't one that I was anticipating. I always had my reservations with it,
Hmm.
and I think after watching episode 8, I can firmly say I am satisfied with
Okay.
it. I did get behind, which I never do with shows that we're talking about. I
Uh,
never don't watch them. I did get a week behind with this, which especially after episode 5, because I was really let down.
mhm.
I think this has some really weak writing in the show, which I like. I don't think it has weak writing per universe. I think it has weak writing for the show, which is a benefit for me. Some of the other Disney Plus Marvel Star Wars shows has weak writing for the universe, which I think belittles characters, hurts storylines outside of
Mhm.
itself. This one's fully contained. So some of those poor writing decisions for me actually help it because they are self-contained. So, Boba Fett, I think, ruins Boba Fett's character,
Yeah.
who is an existing character. This one doesn't ruin any characters. So I would say I'm satisfied. This is a good kid show. If you
Yeah.
have probably, I would say, a 9-year-old, there are some frightening scenes that I feel like the pirates and some other things. I don't know how young I would let someone watch a live action show like this. I so I would definitely say if you have a tween somewhere between like 9 and 12, this is like a perfect entry point in the Star Wars for them to get them excited about it, get excited about the lore, and then maybe start introducing them to other things like the animated shows and things like that. So this is a fun show. It's a fun kid show. I do not think it is a high quality show, but I was satisfied for what it was because it wasn't made for me. This was a kid show made
Mhm.
for kids.
Yeah. I 100% agree. And I also agree with that age group because this is definitely not made for adults. Like, this is a show that was trying to cater more to a younger audience, which I've talked about it many times on the podcast. I felt was very needed. I felt like this came to Star Wars at a very, very good time to start to let some kids get involved with it. And I mean, that's how you continue to have these franchises grow and develop is get kids involved at a certain age. I think Marvel has done that probably better than anybody because of the cartoons, of the animated stuff that we've gotten with Marvel. A lot of that stuff is super super kid friendly, so they can kind of grow up with these characters and then they get into the movies and stuff like that. Star Wars is a little bit different in the fact it doesn't really have that, right? Like, we have some animated stuff, but even some of the animated stuff might be a little bit more, I don't want to say it for a mature audience, but it is a little bit mature with the storytelling that's going on and some of those scenes.
Slave trading and
Yeah.
core
Right. So
business
yeah,
galactic
so like those things are
councils.
it's very prevalent in Star Wars. It's actually a big story point if you think about it with Anakin and all that stuff. Like, it's a big aspect of the Star Wars universe. So I think this did a really good job of just being a kid-friendly show, telling a fun story and having characters that I personally really liked on the screen. I really liked the kids. I know that was one of the aspects that you were struggling with a little bit. You didn't like the kid actors as much. I personally think overall, now that the show is done, I think they did a really, really good job because kid acting can be really rough, and they do have their moments of being a little bit rough. But overall, I gotta say I was satisfied with that aspect of it. So I think overall this is a great show. I would highly recommend it. I thought it was very fun. It's one of those shows that I'm excited to put in my ranking list. And I'm excited to see where you put it ultimately because I think it did a really good job and does deserve some credit for what it did do. Especially in my favorite part about it is such a self-contained story, and it's something I talked about recently with Acolyte is why I ranked it so much higher on my Star Wars show list than you did, is because it didn't hurt any other Star Wars stories. Like you just touched on how this one, it had some bad story for the show, but it doesn't hurt the story overall of the universe. And that's a big plus for me. And that's how I felt with Acolyte for the most part. I know there was some stuff that bended the lore and a lot of people really didn't like, but ultimately it was its own characters and it wasn't really necessarily damaging characters like Obi-Wan and Boba Fett and stuff like that. So those were always big pluses for me. Another thing that I really like about it, because we talk about this probably more than anything with Star Wars, is why aren't we getting stories about other things that aren't the Skywalker saga and stuff? And it's another reason why we've enjoyed, Ahsoka does have the Skywalker stuff, but it is going into a different world. We're getting a story that we've never heard of. We're getting some things like that, and that's something we really liked. So those are all my pros of the show. Obviously, it does have its con. It was not like the best show. The acting was rough at points, but overall, I was very happy with it. So I'm super excited just to kind of to the spoiler stuff a little bit, hear your thoughts about it, and then see where you rank it. So overall, the story wraps up. The non-spoiler part's over. Story wraps up with the kids finally making it back home, and the pirates obviously do find their way to their planet. We get to see Jod sneak his way onto the planet, kind of figure out how much money was really on this planet, which I thought was a really cool scene, that we got to see their vaults and how many of the vaults they had. I thought it was also very cool that we do find out that their superior of the planet was just a droid, being, probably from the Old Republic era. Obviously, it was just a way for them to keep everybody in check without ever having to use people to do it. I thought those things were really fun for this story. What did you think about kind of the overall story that we got and those type of things that happened?
So I like the overall story that we got. It's a little bit of a play on Treasure Planet, a little bit of a play on the Goonies, mixed in with Star Wars, and I enjoyed it. There was aspects of it that I didn't like. I clearly have my issues with episode 4, which I see that they tried to tie it into the finale when Neil goes and finds that blaster cannon that was from that planet. I get that. Like, that was, and then, we got to find out that you could reset KB-33's or SM-33's memory banks, and he, could remember that he was there. I think that was a mispoint, because he should have been able to reset that immediately. That's just me personally, because we already knew he was on AT-ATA or AT-ATN. So I don't want to rehash all that, but I think that could have also been performed better by Neil just having an adult show, like, hey, we do have defenses on this planet. Like, why is Neil the one that's going to the cannons? Like, everyone else has to know, like, there's adults on this planet. Like, no one else is going to defenses or anything, which I kind of found almost like just annoying. Just story beats that are annoying. I really enjoyed Jude Law in this. Jude Law. I think he did great as Jod. I think his acting really carried the show. I think that even when Wim and Fern were very annoying to me that they were on screen, Jude Law really carried it. I thought he did a great job. Him and SM-33 throughout the entire thing kept me interested in the characters. I really enjoyed that. I like the story point of how financially rich this planet is, and that they did have, it was as big of a payoff for the skeleton, or for the the pirates, as it would have been. I really enjoy that it wasn't just like, it's just peace. Like, peace was the treasure. Like that.
No, there's actually treasure. Yeah.
There was actually treasure. Like, I'm glad that was at the end of the story. And we got to see some cool points. I think one of the strongest points of this entire show was episode 6. Is that where the kids get separated?
Yes.
Dude, and you get to watch KB and Wim, and KB break down about the things that she can't do, and feeling unable to talk to her friends about that. Like, I thought that was a great, like, character building moment needed, especially if you are catering this to kids. Like, not everyone can do what everyone else can, and even though we want to say that we're all equal, and that anyone can be great, and anyone can make it to this or do this, like, we have physical constraints sometimes, and sometimes you just can't. And especially for those who have gone through hard times that are now left with the scars of a traumatic incident like KB was. Like, she is now a cyborg because of an incident that happened. And so to kind of see all of that and get, like, her kind of, like, dealing with it, dude, I loved it. Like, I was like, okay, like, this is the kind of stuff that I love. Like, it's so much deeper than it's showing. It's so much deeper than the actual story, and we're getting something that, like, can help someone. And I love the escapism and kind of getting to see somebody who may be dealing with a disability that feels like they can't do something, kind of be able to watch this show and see that KB uses her abilities to a completely different level than all the other kids. And I enjoyed that. That may have been the most enjoyable thing about the entire show was that moment. But yeah, and so I say that to say there's really good moments in this, but just a lot of weak story writing that didn't make sense. Uh, a lot of isolationist where it's like only the kids are doing something. I don't like that. Like I don't like that only the kids on this entire planet were doing something to help. And we did get to see Wim's dad and Fern's dad, trying to help against the intelligence, which was fun. But I felt like there should have just been more. And I don't know how you feel about that. How do you feel? Do you feel like we should have got some more involvement in that finale from other people on the planet, considering the mass force that was attacking?
Well, so the thing that I enjoyed the most about, which is something that you touched on a little bit, was the Neil thing. And the Neil thing is when I realized kind of where they were going with that last episode. And I love how that moment was kind of like a recollection of the journey they did go on. And that was Neil's episode where he got like the little kiss on the cheek. He met that girl that he had the crush on and all that stuff. And he was really interested in all the things she was showing him. And that paid dividends at the very end because he knew where to go for this canon and stuff like that. I did also find it a little interesting, like, the parents and stuff, but it also kind of made sense too, because if you think about what this planet was, it kind of was like a dictatorship, right? They would listen to these droids, they listened to what this droid told them what to do, and then the other droids that were like the guardians and stuff, they just always assumed that they were going to protect them if anything bad ever happened. So when all that stuff goes nowhere, they don't know what to do. They've grown up just kind of living in this nurtured environment. So I like that aspect of it, though, like that the kids just got done on this huge journey where they weren't being taken care of like that. They were having to fend for themselves. I thought it was really fun that we kind of got to see them like take charge and be like, hey, this is what we need to do because we just experienced all this stuff. And I love how, going back to the Neil thing, each character kind of had their moment throughout this season that shined in the finale. Like we got to see KB learning how to, like, she knew how to fly the ship because she had been working with SM-33 on the stuff like that. Like I thought all those aspects were really cool, that the story overall wasn't a waste. Like those things that they were learning and doing on their journey came in clutch, in the finale. So I thought all that stuff was really, really fun. Obviously, you can kind of nitpick it with some things because it is a little frustrating that the parents were literally doing nothing. Like it makes no sense. You would at least think they would try to like fight back with their fists. They would be throwing stuff at these pirates, but they kind of did. I understand why they didn't, because they wanted the kids to shine. They wanted the kids that we had spent this entire journey with to be able to have the opportunity to save everybody. So I thought that was really, really cool. I thought Jod was the best part of the show as well. I loved how they used the lightsaber, and we kind of got to hear a little bit more about Jod's backstory. He was found by a Jedi. He did watch her get executed in front of him. All these things happened to him, and I thought the coolest aspect of it is knowing that he wasn't fully trained. We could totally see that by how he wielded the lightsaber, right? The way he moved it around and stuff didn't really make much sense. It wasn't fluid. He really did kind of use it more like a sword, and I thought those things were all really well done throughout the show. So it did have some highs, it did have some lows, and I agree with a lot of your complaints, but some of those complaints are things that I actually enjoyed. Like I like the aspect that the kids were able to be the saviors of it. They had their chance to shine and do all the things that they had learned on this journey. I thought all that was really, really fun.
Now, I loved the aspect of the training as well. I thought they did a good job with that, and it did, like, it did make sense, right? That he had a very rudimentary training with the Force, very rudimentary training with lightsabers. So I did enjoy that as well. How did you feel that stabbing through the lens shut the entire planet down? Like,
yeah, so
when that happened, what's your thought?
So I was like thinking, I was like, surely that like doesn't mess everything up. But like again, I kind of understand it's a weaker story point. I personally didn't really mind it because like it kind of just like felt. I always correlate some stuff like that to like a video game. Like that's like a video game thing that would happen. Like, oh, there's like this ultra powerful thing, but it has this really, really bad weakness, and that's how you ultimately kill it. That's kind of what I was thinking about in that moment. I was like, sure, this thing probably should have a lot more security than it does. Like, obviously, just those droids were like all it had. So I was a little bit like, okay. But also, it kind of reminded me like video game esque. So it didn't really bother me. Like, I feel like it could have bothered some people.
Yeah, it really bothered me, especially since they could get it up so fast. I'm like, what? How does it make sense that he like can reboot it from something else? Like, if that was a bad enough blow to down the entire system, why is now he able to reboot the entire system? I like with power, like I literally laughed out loud. I think when he said like I'm assist us,
Oh, dude, I love. He said he's
dude,
like I'm a class 7 something.
I'm a class 7 systems manager. Of
I
course I
loved
can.
that.
It's
I
like
thought that
what
was
in the
awesome.
world? This is freaking crazy. Um, so
No,
I
it was
laughed out loud
cringe.
at
It
that
was
scene. It was
definitely
super
like
cringe.
I loved it though. Like I thought that was really fun. Like that's the best word I could use for this whole show was just fun. Like those
Uh,
moments are the things that I look back on and I'm like that was funny.
how did you
I
feel about
actually
Kate?
enjoyed that moment.
Another moment I laughed out loud in like not a good way was when like they get to the ship and KB rolls out with the gold, like just like a dead
Oh,
dummy body. I was like, why? Like, why? What was going on there? Oh
especially
man,
because like she's not going to be dead. Like there's no
yeah,
way.
no way.
There were a lot of moments in this show though that I feel like if they wanted to have made this a really mature show, they very easily could have. Like that's one of the things I want to talk about where we talked about like yeah, it was a kid show, but there were some moments where you were like, "Oh, that's a little bit more of an intense thing." The first thing that comes to my mind was when Jod kills the pirate, the new captain
Yeah,
when the
yeah.
kid picked him up and he just shoots him in the head. Like that was a moment for me where I was like, "Okay, maybe this it is a kid show still, but maybe it's not as kid friendly as I would have given it if it had never done that."
Yeah, I definitely thought of that moment too. I was surprised that they actually did it.
Mhm.
I was like when he did pull the trigger, I was like, "Whoa!" Like that makes complete sense. Like I was happy he did because storyline it makes like
Yeah.
plain and obvious sense. But I was surprised that they did it for the show. So like I get what you're saying. Like they definitely had moments where you're like, "Wow, this is actually like they did take some a little bit more risk here with some of this stuff." Like trying to incorporate some mature things into it.
Yeah, and like the other one that comes to mind is when Jod tells the kids, he's like showing them the lightsaber, and he's like, I know what your parents look like, and I'm willing to carve them up if you say anything about what I'm doing. Like those are some of those moments where I was like, wow, they if they really wanted to, like this could have been a super mature show. Like KB could have died in that last episode. And like there were so many things I was like, there like I like the show. So like this is gonna probably come off sounding like I didn't like it. This show, in my opinion, had potential to be a really, really, really good Star Wars show if they wanted it to have been a more mature, for more mature audiences.
I I could not agree more. Like if they tuned up this to be a better, like more coherent story with better plot points and more, I guess, reasonably like even like the pirates, right? Like if they could have just tuned up some of that stuff,
Mhm.
it would have been a better show. I feel like it would have maybe even been competing for like a legitimate like okay, like where does this actually land instead of like well this kind of lands here by default because it
Yeah.
has to. It which is where it is in my ranking. Like I didn't have any trouble with my ranking. It just clearly went where it went. So personally I agree with that. I would say it's it's disappointing because like there was a better show here. Like I love Treasure Planet. I love Treasure Planet. And so I think because of that, I just see this as so much weaker than that. It's ridiculous. And so I don't know. I wish it was better for me. I'm satisfied with where it's at because I wasn't excited for it at all. But I do wish it was better.
Now, my next question is with you being satisfied, this does end really. I think my ending with the show might be my biggest complaint because it did end extremely abruptly. I felt like. Did you feel that same way?
Um, no, I didn't feel like it ended super abruptly. I felt like it maybe maybe could have done a little bit more with the X fighter X Wing, but I mean, I
Hmm.
just don't think they knew where they were going with it. Like, how does the New Republic getting hold of this much money play going forward? How does how does this work for them going for other country for the other planets? Like, what does this mean? And I think it does have some implications. Maybe this is where we get all the funding for uh the what is it Or is it Star Destroyer?
Oh,
What the
oh yeah,
planet?
yeah, yeah, yeah. Why am
The
I
planet
the Death
killer.
Star?
Yeah, the
Like
bigger
yeah,
Death
like the
Star.
bigger Death Star. Yeah, like
Yeah,
the
like
yeah, yeah.
I laugh even
I don't
talking
know
about it.
why.
Like,
Literally, I cannot remember what it's called.
but anyway, yeah, like maybe this is where they get that, the funds and the forces that it would take to procure something like that. Maybe this is what happens, right? So I just don't think they knew what to do with that much economy breaking funds coming into the galaxy and into the galactic order. So that's a potential. Who knows? But I was okay with how it ended because I didn't see a clear path forward. I do wish we would have saw a little bit more of the X-wings because I did think that was really cool when
Hmm.
you do title the episode "The Actual Good Guys" or "The Real Good Guys."
Yeah, great
Like,
title name, by the way.
yeah, super good and played in well uh during the course of the finale. But I do wish you would have had more of the real good guys, but it was fine. I was satisfied. The finale was the strongest part. Like
Yeah,
total
and
combined episode, strongest part. I think KB's part in episode 6 was the best part of the show.
and overall, like, I'm not like upset about the finale. I just feel like it did kind of like I kind of wanted to see. I wanted to see like what you were just talking about. Like, I wanted like even if it was just a scene of seeing Fern's mom, who I assume is going to be the new supervisor of this planet because she was kind of second in charge. Even if it was just her talking to like an X-wing pilot or some official, because we do see like the Tantive 4 ship fly in at the very end, where like someone high on the New Republic's on that ship, right? Someone is
Right.
coming to assess the situation here. Like I just wanted that. Like just let me hear
Who is
her
it?
talk to that. Like who is coming? Who is she gonna say? Like what are they gonna tell them? Like oh we're gonna take care of your planet now. You guys have nothing to worry about. We know your complete defense system is now gone because no one even knew where this planet was. I thought that was actually a really cool part of the show was like how this planet was hidden. It really was hidden in plain sight. Like ships were just not willing to fly into this destructurous like thing. And I really also like the aspect of how the reason that the old pirate was able to get onto the planet was because he stole an emissary ship and was able just to fly in under the radar. Like all those things are really really cool. But I did
Yeah.
just want to see, like you just said, how are they going to take all these funds? Like it is a lot of money. And I did see a post. I was just trying to find it on X of someone had an idea, like a theory of what was going to happen. I thought it was really good. I thought I liked it, but I guess I didn't. So I'll try to find that at some point and bring it back up to you. But yeah, there's still a story to be told here, I feel like. And I feel like we don't see what happens with Jod. Like, and I think those things were done purposely. Like, I really do
Okay.
think that they did this show with it. It is a self-contained story. Like, if they don't do anything else with it, it's fine. Like, we're not going to be like, oh, we need to find out what happened here. But I do think they left some of those things open-ended for a reason. I definitely think that these characters will be back in some form or capacity. It might not be a big thing. It might just be like to keep the world connected. But I would not be shocked if we see these characters back. What do you think about that?
I wouldn't be surprised either. It wouldn't be a shock to me. You did just touch on something that I did have a complaint on with the abrupt ending. Leaving Jod up in the tower alone,
Mm-hmm.
big miss. Like,
Yeah.
why in the world would they do that? That was stupid. I did have that here to talk about. I just glazed over it, I guess. But yeah, man, what are they doing? Like, I understand they want him alive for potential future events, is what I'm assuming, right? Like you said, like there's story to be told here because they allowed that story to be open ended.
Yeah.
Like there's a story to be told only because they didn't finish telling it, which I think is funny. Uh, but yeah, no, I agree. There's a story to be told here. But I just don't think they thought through what the story was. So like I don't think they can tell it. Like I don't think they can with the quality of story we got from everything else for it, like I just felt like it was a weaker story. So I wouldn't expect them to have fully thought out the ramifications of introducing that amount of funds into the New Republic, because
So I
that
did
that
actually
would wreck the economy.
exactly. So I did actually find the post real quick. The first part of this, I'll go ahead and give credit. It is from Commander Brom Titus on X. He is just a Star Wars account that I found that I actually kind of like some of his takes on things.
Okay.
And I don't agree with this first part, but he's the question was, I love Skeleton Crew, but it did that annoying thing where it ended right before it should have. What happened with Jod? What happens to Atten now? What's going on with the supervisor? There's too many questions. The same with Acolyte. We are not getting a season 2, I fear. And he responded, and he said, Jod will continue to be the pirate he is, plundering and scamming until Tillman takes him out. I don't agree with that. Like, I think he's going to get arrested. I don't see him just, like, escaping this planet at this point, because the X-Wings are there. Obviously, with them showing up and seeing how much money is there, this planet is going to be on, like, probably even more of a lockdown than it was on previously. Like, before, everyone just thought it was fake. Now this is going to be like a legit city set up for defenses to protect this stuff. So I don't agree with that. I don't think these kids would also be able to sleep at night knowing that he was still out there. So I don't think that part would continue if we did get a season 2, or if he does get, a continuation. I feel like if we ever see Jod again, it would almost be in one of those scenes like we saw in The Mandalorian. Do you remember the Mandalorian episode? I guess it was maybe season 1, potentially season 2, I can't remember, where he goes on to the New Republic jail and he like breaks out some of those people. I think that would be a really perfect way to kind of reintroduce Jod into Star Wars if you wanted to. That's kind of where I would see him lining up. But then the second part of this post, he says, Atten will join the New Republic with the Undersecretary looking after the people, which is what I said, which is Fern's mom. And he said the money will be seized and secretly fund the future First Order, which is what you just said. I think that would be a really fun story to kind of, like, that's what I wanted to see at the very end. Like, it ended just, give us 10 minutes of, like, hearing what was going to happen with the money, and then kind of showing us some future First Order spy or somebody that secretly got in and is really sending this money to the First Order and to Kylo Ren, and kind of seeing all that build up stuff. Like, that's kind of what I wanted to see, or however Kylo, I don't know, but you get what I'm saying. Like, that would have been really, really fun just to get a few more minutes at the end of the show to kind of really just cement it and not leave it so open-ended.
No, I definitely agree with that. That's super. That I get it, right? But I'm fine with it not doing that, because like we've said, it is a self-contained story, right? And as soon as you start doing that, it becomes not self-contained at all. And so I'm okay with maybe a spin-off of this becoming not a self-contained story, and we get to see all of that if they want to continue these characters, or like the next show could be something about Atten, and it could be all about the First Order secret development of the New Order, or the First Order, and how that came about. Like, I'm fine with that, but I think it's good to not include that in this first season, because that was not the story being told. The story being told was these kids, and so their story ended, and Atten's story just now begins. So I'm okay with those being separate. I get wanting to see it, but I'm okay with it not being shown.
Yeah, and I would agree with that, because we both agree that it is good that it's a self-contained story. I really would have liked to just see a New Republic person just talk to the new supervisor. I thought
Just
that would have been
something.
an interesting. Yeah, just a little. We were right there. So those were some things I really like. I did hear. I wish I could find the Twitter post for this one. I need to start liking these things or screenshotting them. But I did hear. Do you remember the New Republic show we were supposed to get about the pilots of the New Republic or something like that?
Yeah, I do, and I remember thinking that wasn't that where not Echo,
We were
but what's her name?
Yeah, Omega. We were hoping
Omega would show up.
So I have heard some people theorizing that they think that ultimately that show is kind of gotten canceled, and if we do see these kids again, it'll be them as pilots in the New Republic, because you kind of do get that little scene at the very end where Wim is looking up through and he sees all the X-Wings flying in, and it's like his mind shifted. He's like, I know I can't be a Jedi. Like, I don't have that in me, but I could be a pilot. Like, I could be an X-Wing pilot. And we already see that with KB. We already see that with Fern's leadership. I think Neil would be a really funny character to develop into a pilot or something like that. What do you think about those characters continuing their story in that way? Maybe we don't get a full show about it, but maybe that's how we do see them again in the future. Is they're grown up and they're X-Wing pilots.
I really like that. That's a big win for me, because we get to see like the passionate, like they would be very passionate about being the pilots. Like they would understand. And I really liked Fern when she came and she was talking to her mom and like understand all the horrors that were out there. But everywhere there were her horrors, there was also good. And like her fighting for that good as a pilot, like being saved by the X-Wings and being looking up to that and not being cynical at all about the the program, but just training to be the best that they could be. I would really enjoy that. That's actually a wonderful story point forward that I would like to see.
Yeah. So I thought that was a really good idea as well. Like again, I don't like as open-ended as it like ended. I do like that it ended open-ended enough to be able to have these fun theories and stuff that we can talk about for years to come and things like that. Maybe we will never see them again because this show did not do very well as far as viewership is concerned. Now, for me personally, I was very excited about this when it got announced and when it was coming out. I personally think it delivered for me. Like, I would like to see these characters more, but I know it didn't quite get the viewership, so I would also understand if it didn't get there. But overall, I was very happy with it. Now, the next thing I want to talk about is we like after a show ends, we do this with Marvel, and we do this with Star Wars. We talk about our rankings. Like, where do we put the show in our Star Wars rankings? Zane, I want to go ahead and see where you put yours because you said it was very easy for you. And for me, it was easy for me as well, but I think it might surprise you a little bit about where I did put it. But where did you put it on your list?
Yeah, for me, it dropped right below Ahsoka, right above Boba Fett. Like, it's not anywhere close to Ahsoka. It's not really anywhere close to Boba Fett. Like, it's just like, it's in that void where it's like, we don't have any okay shows in Star Wars for me. We either have terrible shows, which is Book of Boba Fett, Kenobi, and Acolyte, or we have amazing, really good shows, which is Andor, Mando, and Ahsoka. And this fell right in the middle. I think it's not great. I don't think it's terrible, but it's not one I'd rewatch. Like, it's like a 5.5 for me, personally. If I was watching it with a child, I think it could definitely bump up to a 7.5 area. But for me, this is like sub 6. So I'm putting it right at number 4, I guess, in my rankings, which is crazy to me. But yeah, that's where it's landing for me.
No, so I guess it isn't so different because that's exactly where I have it as well. Like right smack dab in the middle. This again, it did things that we both talked about that we are happy about. Is it doesn't alter any other Star Wars universe stuff. Like, it is its own little story. Now, it could have big ramifications if they wanted it to, because we've talked about how much money and all that stuff could play a factor in all things moving forward. But I think it was a very solid show, and I think that's actually a win for Star Wars because sometimes you do just need those okay shows, right? You sometimes need those okay shows that get you through. Like, the next big show we have coming up is Andor. Like, that's going to be a big one. Like, we're super pumped for that. But I think this is a really good, like, hold you over show. Obviously, we would always like for every show to be like amazing and like our top 3, but it makes sense for it not to always be that. So I think right there in the middle, it's very good. My next question though for you is, I'm interested to see this. We've talked about how much it is a kid's show. And I know that your daughter loved the Young Jedi Adventure show, and that you said this kind of falls into that 9 to 12 age group gap. Would this be the first introduction you would give her for like live action Star Wars?
For live action Star Wars.
Or even animated? Like, because I know that's all she's watched at this point. Obviously, Clone Wars, Bad Batch, Rebels, all that stuff. But would this, you think, be that next step up for her if she wanted to continue to watch Star Wars? Because I know she loved the Young Jedi Adventures, so I'm sure she would be interested. You know, obviously once she gets a little older, because live action stuff always does bring a little bit more of just a more mature audience in a sense. Just
I
because you
would
kind of have to
probably
pay a little
step
bit
up.
more attention.
I would probably step up to Rebels first.
Okay.
I think Rebels is more kid gripping. So it's always because this does have little bit of like the characters are not super kid friendly. If like
Agreed.
do have a great imagination, which Charlie does. Charlie has a wonderful imagination, and it can get out of hand pretty quick. So seeing something live action like that, I
Yeah.
don't think I would be willing to do with that. But animation, I'm a little bit more okay with her seeing that because it's not as real.
Mhm.
Animation is never as scary, so it can be frightening. Can have some scary scenes, but when it looks real, in the child of mine, it can in the mind of a child, it can go over the top real quick. So I would probably do Rebels first. Rebels is very kid friendly. It does have a lot of mature themes in it. It has a lot of mature scenes in it. But for the most part, like the jokes, the fun, like it's all there. It's all very kid friendly. So I would probably give her Rebels first, and that's because I want to rewatch Rebels.
It's really Zayne's next choice.
Yeah, it's my next choice. Like, I would rather watch Rebels with her, like go through and watch Rebels with her, and it's palatable. It's not like this humongous like show watch that like we would have to go through like it would be with the Clone Wars. The Clone Wars is
Big
oof,
undertaking.
big undertaking. You know, like I don't know, like it's those are
That's something
7
she's gonna
long
have to watch in
seasons.
her own
Yeah.
time.
Yeah, here's your homework. You know, if you
Yeah,
liked Rebels, there's more. Like here's Clone. No,
yeah.
um, and then I would probably go to original trilogy. Honestly, like
Okay.
I think I would show original trilogy before Skeleton Crew personally, because I don't think that the original trilogy is that far advanced past this one. Like if I'm willing to show her this one, I don't think there's anything in the original trilogy that's worse than this for a child. Like I think the original trilogy is pretty kid friendly. Like I know
I'd
Darth
100%
Vader's
agree.
menacing and there are some scary creatures, but all in all, like pretty kid friendly movie.
Mhm.
So I would probably go there instead of here.
Okay. I was always interested, I think, because of how much we've talked about it being such a kid-friendly show. I think it's good to also let those people out there know that, like, hey, maybe there's other gateways to live action Star Wars that you might want to go with first. I think the original trilogy is a really great call because when I'm thinking back on it, there probably were a little bit more intense, scary scenes in Skeleton Crew than there were in the original trilogy. So I think that's a good shout. I love that example. So yeah, I thought it'd be interesting just to see, obviously you're raising a kid. You're obviously going to get to the point where they want to watch some more stuff like that. So I was just interested to see where you would rank this as far as actually how kid friendly it really was.
Yeah, and yeah, I want to show them good things. Like I want
Yeah.
my daughter to have good taste. And
Right.
so like I want them to like Star Wars because of good stories, and I think the original trilogy is good quality movies. Like I love the heroism in it. I like the story behind it, and I think it introduces one of the best villains in all of cinema. So I want her to have really good taste and not, we don't watch her or we don't let her watch things that we don't want to watch. Like, I know, I think it's funny, like Coco Melon. Like, if anyone out there knows what Coco Melon is, like, we don't let her watch that because we hate it. Like, there's like,
Right.
I understand, like, she would have probably loved that as a kid, but no, like, it's awful entertainment. Like, we don't want her to have that type of enjoyment for entertainment. So,
Set the
maybe that's
expectations
me
high.
being maybe that's me being snobby. I don't know. But but yeah, no, I want her to enjoy Star Wars because it's good. So I would want to introduce her to the best of it first.
Yeah, no, I think that makes a lot of sense. But overall, that's our Star Wars Skeleton Crew kind of wrap up. I'm interested to see what, as more people, I haven't really been keeping up with, like, after the finale came out, what people were saying. I do know that a lot of people that did get through it all did enjoy it, but I'm interested to see kind of more of the discourse as it continues to move on throughout the rest of the year as we get closer to Andor and stuff. I wonder if this is something people are even going to still be talking about. I personally don't think so. I think it's kind of going to have it had its moment of just being the new Star Wars show. I think that's kind of all it'll ever be remembered as. But overall, I'm glad we got it. I enjoyed my time with it. So that's that. Now, talking about high quality entertainment, I know that you just finished up the first season of Last of Us, and I know you were super pumped about it, talking about how much you enjoyed it. So why don't you give us a little bit of rundown of the first season? Tell us what you liked. Tell us how excited you are for the second season now, because I know you are.
Yeah, Last of Us really was gripping. It was very entertaining, very switch up from Skeleton Crew.
Yeah, right.
We talk about like what you would let your kids watch, and I probably wouldn't let my daughter watch this like until well, well into her teens. I don't know. Like there's a lot in this show. So personally, it's a complete and total switch up. It's very good, very great storyline. I was a little off put by some of the choices they made. I know I think it's 7. I think episode 7, where we get to see Ellie's backstory. Didn't love that. I'm definitely, everyone knows that I'm a Christian on the show. We try to give Christian moral values. So whenever we introduce LGBTQ plus themes into a show, I'm not going to love that as much. Now, I understand representation in Hollywood is what it is. You can do what you want. However, just like for me, entertaining it, I don't enjoy that entertainment. So we had that episode, and then we had the other one with Bill and his partner, which just didn't need to be that. So I personally don't like that that was the way that they went forward with the romance in the show. So that is a big knock to the show. But outside of that, it was very, very good, very entertaining. I really like the conclusion. Really, the finale of the show is worthwhile. I love where they ended the show. I love the path forward that they can go with the show and everything that they've done. It was very, very entertaining. So I had a blast with it. So I was gripped with it. I was staying up late. You know, we had a crazy busy week last week, and we still finished the show because I was just staying up till 11:30, knowing I had to get up at 4:30. I just, who needs sleep? Not me, apparently, because Chelsea wants to watch this show, and I'm fully supportive of that. So whenever we're both on board
All
on
right,
watching a
Zay, let's
show,
not try to play
we're
this
doing
like
it.
you were just being a good husband and all. We all know you really wanted to. It was probably you keeping Chelsea up, if I had to guess. Like, I bet that's
Now,
really how this went down. But
now
I'll let you
listen.
live
One
in
of us starts
your
work at five
fantasy land for
thirty.
a little while.
One of us starts work at 5:30, and one of us starts work when the child wakes up. So like.
So
Going to bed early is more important for one of us.
right. I think that's, really good. I need to get on this show because I played the games. I loved them. And, just hearing you talk about how much you like the story that they were able to tell, I think is awesome just because I do respect your opinion when it comes to shows and movies and stuff because I know how much you actually care about everything that goes into it, the storytelling, the acting, and all that stuff. And that's one of the things I do want to ask you about because I've heard so many good things about the acting. And this is a lot of people say that this might be Pedro Pascal's best role he's done. What do you think about the acting in the show, and how did you feel in particular about him? Because we're both big fans of him. I've loved him in just about everything I've seen him in. What did you think about the acting overall?
Spectacular. I mean, it was really, really solid. He he does a great job of carrying the show with the emotional weight. And dude, as a parent, whenever you
Yeah,
include children and children themes throughout with whether it is caretaking, loss, or seeing them struggle, and you get to see that through somebody else's eyes, it's always even more emotional when that kind of stuff happens because you kind of put yourself in that place and like, what would you do? What would you do here? What decisions would you make? And he does a great job. He does a great job showing joy, showing sorrow, showing all of these other emotions that he's pulling through him out of his bag and carrying weight and dealing with the moral implications of what he's done. I mean, it is a deep show. Like there is a lot of things going on. You talk about Lamar Johnson who pulls in as Henry in a few of the episodes, which is just wow. Like the moment that's pulled off in that show for his episodes is the payoff is crazy. The build up, I didn't see it coming. Uh, like I saw a little bit of it coming. I'm trying not to spoil it for if anyone hasn't seen it but is now wanting to watch it because like it's definitely worth watching if you haven't, especially with the season 2 coming up. We don't know how the quality of that is, but it's reassuring that they're investing in the story to continue, even though maybe the themes we won't love, maybe it doesn't play off super great, but I'm excited. No, the acting was great, and I think Bella Ramsey, who plays Ellie, she did great. Like really, really solid. Every time she's alone, trying to do her own thing without Joel, she does great. She carries it well. She shows the trying to grow. She's a 14-year-old kid dealing with all of this pain, this suffering, growing up in a world that she doesn't really know anything about the world because she was born during the zombie apocalypse. So trying to see like not knowing what arcade games were and not knowing what like how to drive, not knowing what a car is. Like she like at one point she's like might as well be in a spaceship. like just being in a Chevy S10 pickup truck. Like that's such a cool moment. Like that's such a like such so fascinating to think of. Like if the world went to absolute garbage, and then you have a child who's born into that garbage, and you're experiencing things from the previous world that you would have like just taken for such granted because we live in such wealth and in such um, a state of comfort that is unknown to most of the world, honestly, and it's sad. And then to imagine that just going away and then people going without it and then getting a glimpse of it, it's just fascinating. And so I'm rambling on for a lot longer than I probably should have on the show, but I really enjoyed the acting. I think they did a great job on it. I cannot think of one point in the show where somebody was like, I was like, man, they are like ruining this. So, but yeah,
Well, you're gonna have to play some of the games at some point because I would love to just see. I need to watch them just so I can see what points were different, and I think it'd be really cool to kind of see what you think is different and see which one you decide that you like better. Because obviously, when you have shows converted to or games converted to show, they have to do some stuff differently. I don't know what those things were. I'm sure there were a handful of things that were done differently, but I'm always interested to see if I prefer which way one thing does another. Neil Druckmann, who does these games like that, he's awesome. I think he's one of the better storytellers we have in the industry as far as gaming is concerned. I think everybody would agree with that. He does a really good job. He's actually got a whole new franchise coming out called Interstellar. I think it's called. I need to look up what it's called. I want to say it's Interstellar, but I feel like that is not correct. Oh, Intergalactic. That's what it's called. He's got a brand new IP coming out that I'm just super. Naughty Dog Games kills it. So I'm super excited to kind of hear more about this stuff and, just the stories he has to tell. But yeah, The Last of Us has been super special for a lot of people. I need to get onto it and watch the show. I know my wife would probably really enjoy it as well. She loves those type of stories and the good acting and all that stuff. So I'm super happy you got to watch it and that you're super excited for season 2. Obviously, it's going to be a big talking point when it does come out. So definitely just for the podcast's sake, I need to get on it.
yeah. I was watching. You said you need to watch the show, and like I'm watching some of these scenes, and I'm like, man, this would be an awesome like I can imagine it like being like a boss scene, right? Like how do you
Yeah.
get out of this scene? Like what do you do in this moment? Like it seemed like a lot of cool moments. I don't even know what the show like what the gameplay is like in the game. Like I don't know what it looks like, but I can definitely see this would have been like a bunch of really cool episodes. So or a bunch of really cool levels that you would have got to play through. I'm thinking like the house burning down and like
Yeah.
her fighting like the cult leader. Dude, like that would have been a fun game like episode. Like, I don't know. And so like maybe that's not even in the video game. But like I can imagine that being a very fun moment to play through. So
Yeah. No, they do a really good job, I'm sure, of making you feel those moments. We talked about it a little bit with the Fallout show and like how you're able to have those moments. Like for me, where I've played the Fallout games and stuff, like being like, "Oh, that's really cool." Like I remember doing stuff like that in the game. Like I remember these things. I bet this show probably does a really good job of making the players feel that way as well, because obviously it's just a great story, which you have proven because you haven't watched it or haven't played the game. But really, that's like probably one of your most important audiences, because those are the people that are for sure going to watch it, are the people that played your game. So I think it's really important that they do have those elements in it that like make you feel like you are a part of something. And I'm sure this game probably hits on all those points. So like I said, I need to get to it. Hopefully it'll be soon on my watch list. But another thing that came out that I think you wanted to touch on a little bit, which I don't know if you did get around to it or not, was Severance season 2. This is another one that I've been saying I need to watch. I haven't watched the first season. Have you had an opportunity to hop into the second season?
I did get an opportunity to hop into the second season, and it does have weekly drops, so it's going to be a little bit slower, but it
Hmm.
picked up right where it left off. Very enjoyable, very on pace with what the first season is, and just as much mystery. Like the feeling of uh, what is it? Like almost unsure, like how of like what's still going on. It's crazy. Like I was like, "Hey Chelsea, like, do we need to do like a recap of like what happened in last season?" And she's like, "No, this is actually one of the shows like I really remembered. Like, like I don't think I need one." And I was like, "Okay, cool." And so we jumped right into it, and the recap plays, and I was like, well, I'm just gonna watch this like just to kind of like refresh myself on this. And it finished, and she goes, maybe I do need one. Because there is just so much going on in that first season.
Yeah.
And it is a lot. Like, it's a lot to take in. And like when you go a year and a half without watching a show that has 8 or 9 hours of content, 8 or 9 hours of content, like that's a lot. Like that's a lot
Yeah, well,
to
for sure.
remember. So, and especially when you've watched 17 shows since then, if not more. So it was very good, picked up right where it left off, and I'm very excited to see what they do in this season, how they make it new, how they make it a little bit more fresh, and continue the story forward in a way that is enjoyable. So I'm excited to see if you pick it up, if you start watching weekly with us, if we're talking about it, because man, there's so much mystery in this thing, so much speculation of what could go on, and the vibes in it are just so much fun to. It's like I don't know. It's like almost like a comforting air, like eeriness. Like it's like it's so weird. It's almost like you have to watch it to like feel like the way like you're so invested, you're so interested in the characters, but like you're also like this is just weird. So, but it's a good show. I was very satisfied with the opening. Not really, can't really speak to anything that happened in the first episode because like we just don't know what's going on yet. But yeah, I'm excited to see where they take it.
I do think they had probably one of the coolest publicity stunts for a show ever, which I don't know if you saw that they actually were. I think it was an airport maybe that they like set up a scene from and like actually had all the actors there, kind of like reenacting the show. I don't know if you saw any of those pictures or anything,
Yeah,
but
yeah,
I
I
thought
think it
that
was
was
in
super
Grand
neat.
Central Station actually.
Okay,
I think
yeah,
they
yeah,
did it in Grand Central Station and they worked all day. They
yeah.
worked as if they were in Lumen. Like I thought that was really cool.
Yeah, so I thought that was the stuff like that's enough to get me like wanting to watch it just because I love when things people do out of the box stuff like that. And I thought it was really cool that it was actually the actors from the show that did that. Like it's so easy you could hire like doubles or like put makeup on people to make them look a certain way, but no, it was the actors, and I thought that was a really neat thing. And really, props to their dedication for being willing to going and doing that for as long as they did. I thought that was really cool. But
Yeah, very
no,
very cool.
yeah, so Severance season two, well on its way. Zayne seems to be enjoying it. Finished up The Last of Us, super pumped for The Last of Us season two. So I think it's been probably a good week for you as far as shows go.
Yeah, been a great week. And even finishing up Skeleton Crew,
Yeah.
that was fun. Now me and Chelsea have to find something new to watch, this
So
upcoming week.
anything on your docket, like something you need to catch up on that you haven't had a chance to watch, or maybe even rewatch something that you really enjoyed?
There was something that I was supposed to watch, and I'm trying to remember what it is currently, but it has just escaped my mind. I think it may have been Chernobyl. I
Okay.
think Chernobyl may be the next one on our list for HBO Max about the reactor. It's a docu series. It's a little shorter, but I know it's something that she will enjoy because it is a documentary style, and I love nuclear power and everything that goes on with it, and so that's a fascinating part of human history. Chernobyl, just like
Oh, for
in
sure.
the catastrophe that was. So I think we're gonna pick up that one. I've heard really good things about it. So my brother actually just finished that one, and so he said, man, yeah, for a docu series, it's a 10 out of 10. He said for just like an enjoyment series, not a 10 out of 10. He's
Mhm.
like I can't super recommend it because I like he's like it's just not
It's for a certain audience.
super enjoyable like to watch because it is just like a docu series but
Yeah.
it's dramatized. He's like it's probably like a 7 out of 10 total show, but 10 out of 10 for a docu series. So we're gonna pick it up and see what we think.
Yeah, I think that would be super fun. Chernobyl has one of the coolest Call of Duty missions of all time. So every time I think of Chernobyl, I always think about that mission in particular. But I think that'll do it for this week's episode. I'll be interested to see if you do pick that up. obviously you have, I'm sure, a ton of things to pick from. There's always so much new content coming out. I, for myself, have plenty of catching up I need to do on lots of other things.
Yeah,
So,
what's your next show on your dog? Are you gonna try to
it's
pick up on
probably,
Severance this week?
yeah, it'll probably be Severance or The Last of Us just because of how much you've talked about it. I know Danielle would really like Last of Us. Severance, I don't know enough about to know if she would like it, but I know she'd be willing to give it a shot. So it'll probably be one of those two just because it's kind of like what's hot right now and then what's going to be hot here in a couple months. So probably one of those two, but there's definitely no shortage of things. I think that's the fun thing about this podcast is we will always have something to talk about. So that's always an interesting aspect of it. But yeah, it'll be one of those two for me.
Okay. Yeah, I'm excited to see which one you pick and which if you enjoy Severance, because there's potential you really don't. Like,
Yeah.
there's a potential you don't like that show. I think Danielle would really like it. I think it has like that book feel of like what's going on. That I know she loves reading,
Mhm.
and I feel like it almost can bring in the anticipation of something like that. So I think she'll like it. I think the worry would be that you would not like Severance.
Right. Well, if there's no like limbs breaking and blood splat, I don't know, man. Sometimes
There's some goats, dude. There's some goats.
All right, well, maybe that's enough
Yeah.
for me. But that's gonna do it for this week's episode of Weekly Fix. Zane, is there anything else you wanted to touch on before we signed off here?
Nah, man, send us out. I've had I had a pleasure on this one. This is great.
Yeah, this is a great episode. Lots to talk about, and there will always continue to be more and more things going on in the entertainment industry that we love to cover. So, again, that is going to do it for this week's episode. If you guys haven't already, make sure to rate us on whatever podcast service you're listening on. Make sure to tell a friend. If you guys are interested, you could watch us on YouTube. And if you do watch us on YouTube, make sure to hit that subscribe button so you guys get up to date with all of the podcasts. Also, hit that notification bell so you never miss anything that's coming out. But that's going to do it for this week's episode. Again, thank you guys so much for listening, and we'll catch you in the next one.